Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon from India for all the viewers from all over the world. So I welcome all the participants for today's program. Symbiosis Institute of Operations Management Nashik takes pleasure in bringing to you the 10th webisode of Editor's Choice, a platform for deliberations by editors from reputable journals. Today we have with us Professor Robin Qiu from Pennsylvania State University, a professor of information science who pioneers in the research in the field of information science. Before we hear him, let me introduce Dr. Vandana Sonavne, Director SIOM, who could make the opening remarks. Dr. Vandana Sonavne has a rich experience spanning over 32 years in the industry, teaching, research, education, management, and consulting. Her exemplary work in curriculum development focused on continually evolving competency requirement of the industry, culminating into the shaping of niche institute in the field of operations management that SIOM stands for today and speedily evolving into the Center of Operation Excellence. Under her leadership, SIOM backed best industry interface and best industry oriented curriculum every year since 2009. SIOM also received the prestigious Educational Excellence Award 2018 by Confederation of International Accreditation Commission Forum in Delhi. She is recipient of Distinguished Service Award by AIMS International for her contribution to fostering management research and the Indian Leadership Award for Educational Excellence by All India Achievers Foundation and the Outstanding B School Director Award in 2009. She is on steering committee of CII India Women Network Council. She is an independent director on company boards and recently appointed on the National Board of SME Chamber of India. So she has led number of research projects. With this, I now hand over the session to Dr. Vandana Sonavne for her opening remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Manatkar. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, madam. You are clearly
Thank
audible.
you so much. Very good evening to all my friends, students, and colleagues in India, and very good morning to Professor Robin Qiu for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us for this 10th episode. When we, as I was discussing with you, when we started this planning for this event, we did plan for around 12 webisodes, and we're so elated today to celebrate this 10th webisode with you as the main speaker. Editor's Choice has been a very important event at SIOM. We take pride in hosting this event for two reasons. One is, as I told you, we wanted to bring editors and research writers on a single platform to have conversations on their deepest thoughts. And I think your topic, which really talks about knowing publishers and getting your papers published, knowing yourself and knowing your publishers, like you know yourself and your enemy, I think some of the deepest thoughts and ideas will come forward here. We also wanted to have a dialogue between sharing of views, so that which is so very crucial to our research publications. Yeah. And on the other hand, we also wanted to enthuse the researchers, academicians, and even the industry to find their own unique role in contributing to knowledge creation. Yeah, particularly for inquiry and application, very important part. I think your topic, Professor Robin, is going to trigger a lot of interest today, because you've actually hit the nail. The basic reason why we are hosting Editor's Choice is to really know the publishers, really know what goes in their minds, even the editors, and what are the things that really work for in a great research paper publication. This has been a new event in our bandwagon, and SIOM has always believed in learning through research and application. And I think this is a symbol of the dynamic academic culture of SIOM. So thank you so much for being with us today. I'm sure you will enjoy talking to the audience, and of course, we're looking forward to your insights on the topic. Yeah, thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Manavkar.
So thank you, ma'am, for those opening remarks. So as a researcher, who wouldn't want to guide for writing and publishing the good research papers? So without any further delay, let me introduce to you our expert for this 10th webisode, Professor Robin Qiu. Professor Robin tenured full professor of information science. Sorry, just one sec. I have. Professor Robin Tenure, full professor of information science, teaches a variety of courses including predictive analytics, management science, business process management, decision support system, project management, enterprise integration, enterprise service computing, software engineering, web-based system, distributed system, computer architecture, computer security, web security, operation research, and system engineering. He holds a PhD in industrial engineering and a PhD minor in computer science, both from the Pennsylvania State University. Professor Robin's research interest include big data, business analytics, smart service system, service science, service operations and management, information systems, and manufacturing and supply chain. Professor Robin is the first editor-in-chief of Informs Service Science and advisory editor for International Journal of Service Operations and Informatics, and an associate editor for IEEE Transactions on System, Man and Cybernetics, and IEEE Transaction on Industrial Informatics. He also serves on editorial board of many other international journals. Professor Robin is the founding chair of the Informs Service Science section and the founder of Informs Service Science. Professor Robin has published following books: Service Science, The Foundation of Service Engineering and Management. It's a 342 pages book published by John Wiley and Sons Incorporation, USA in 2014. Second book is on business-oriented enterprise integration for organizational agility, 340 pages, IGI Global, US 2013. Then third book, Enterprise Service Computing from Concept to Development, 446 pages, Idea Book Publishing, USA in 2007. So with this, now I request Professor Robin to deliver his session.
Okay, let me share my screen first. Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Dr. Mantkar, for your wonderful introduction. And thank you, Dr. Sawini, Dr. Arun Kumar, for your invitation. It's my great honor to have this opportunity to share my experiences with SIOM faculty, students, and your friends. Okay, my discussion this evening will be know yourself and know your publisher, then you will get your paper publisher. Okay, so that's essentially my title. Like I say, this talk, essentially, I will focus on my experience. So as the author, and you have to know yourself. When I say know yourself, it's a matter of fact, know your paper, know your research. So know journal, which journal you would like to submit your paper. So you have to know that journal very well. Okay, that's part of my experience I will share with everyone. As editor, so that's different perspective. So what editor would like to see the submission. So I will provide some insights. There's no secret, as a matter of fact. It's well known. And once you have a lot of interactions with the editors or editing offices. Okay, so this is a almost 2,500 years publication and published by the Chinese general at that time. So in the century was related to the art for the war. There are many of the strategies, but one of the it's very interesting. So I highlight here: know yourself and know your enemy, then you'll be never be defeated. Okay, so that's a very good strategy, right? But of course, when we talk about publication, keep that in mind. We're not saying we try to have a war and fight it with the publisher. Never. Okay. So a research paper, keep that in mind, actually will be involved many stakeholders, yourself as author, and you might have sponsor, your organization, and also publisher without question. So the publisher, and in the many we are dealing with the editorial office. So stakeholders, you can see here there are many stakeholders. So this is a game, it's a method. It's not a war once again. And we have to play this game and having the win-win situation. That's what we like to have. Okay. So we're talking about a game here, right? We're talking about situation, which is a win-win situation. Okay. So that's why we have to switch from know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated, to my title, my talk title, which is know yourself, know your publisher, and you will get your paper published. Okay. Like I say, that there's so many stakeholders that are involved in this publication process. But this talk, I will focus on just authors and the journal. So this is essentially the discussion we can have here. Okay, so for publication, we have to get very good understanding a typical process. So for any paper, you have to get some fantastic research done. That's assumption. So you have to get something done very well. Then we talk about you as an author. So with a paper, like I say, that we have so much done, and we would like to summarize the research work. Then we like to have that research work to be submitted to a journal. So that's why we will have a paper. Of course, you can see here, it's a process. You have to write your paper first, right? And make sure you have to follow the instruction provided by any journal, and format your paper, and then you'll be ready to submit your paper. So then, of course, you have to choose a journal. So which journal you decide to submit your paper, and then you have to check the instruction once again. Make sure when you submit your paper, everything will be included, those that are required by the journal. Because the first step, the editing office will check the completeness of your submission. So if you have one item it's missing, for example, without question, your paper, your submission will be returned. In that case, you're going to waste your time, right? So anyway, so assume your submission is complete, and the editor-in-chief, he or she will review your paper. And because he or she has to check that paper will fit that journal, the scope. So that's why there's a go or no-go decision will be made right away. So assume you submit your paper to the right journal, and of course, editor-in-chief will say go. In that case, he or she will assign an associate editor to organize the review process. Associate editor then will invite, typically, he or she will invite 3 to 5 domain experts worldwide to provide their reviews. So the comments coming from those reviewers, and then associate editor will make a recommendation to the editor-in-chief. And editor-in-chief, of course, will base on that recommendation from the associate editor, and he or she will make the decision. So go back to you if your paper is accepted the first time. That'd be fantastic. That would be good news, right? So most likely, majority of those submissions will require some revision because those reviewers might provide some concerns or simple some suggestions to you to make your paper better, improve the quality. That's why you can see here that you go back to very beginning. So you're going to revise, continue to revise. So we go through this process again. So hopefully after one revision, the paper will be accepted. Of course, like I said, if the first time the paper was accepted, that would be fantastic. And then, you might have this possibility that paper will be rejected. And of course, in that case, we will talk about that later. So of course, you will continue to revise your paper. But anyway, this is just summarizing this. This is a typical process I summarize. You have to know that process very well. Of course, for any publication, and you would like to have some journal in mind, could be recommended by your friends, by your advisors, or simply you know the field very well. So for example here, so it depends on the subject and the field. There are many good journals out there, we call top tier journals, and especially in the business management domain, and this is a well-known called the Financial Times 50. So was 45 before May 2016, but right now it's 50 journals. In Century, the community will review every year. So always, one or two journals might be replaced with the other different journals. But generally speaking, this Financial Times 50, it's considered, all the journals are considered as the top tier journals in the business and the management domain. Okay, keep that in mind. There's many other different publications. For example, the journals from Informs, the PALMS, the journals from IEEE, journals from ACM, there's many other ones. So when we talk about the top tier journals, once again, keep that in mind, it really depends on your institution. It's a matter of fact, it varies with subjects, language, and countries. So there's not like the top tier journal, and you have to follow, given by someone else. Like I say, that your institution might have your own list. So keep that in mind. So here, of course, and my talk focuses on the English publication. So like I mentioned last slides, it depends on language. Different languages, of course, they have their own top tier publications. Okay. So for any journal, keep that in mind, you have to know the journal very well. So you have to read the journal scope and aim. So you will know the focus of that journal. Okay. So of course, the quality of the journal, once again, you have to know the quality of the journal very well. Okay, I will have a few slides to talk about that shortly. And I will give you one example here, in Central Informs publication. So I put here that some Informs publications. So what is Informs? So Informs is an organization. Okay, it's the Institute for Operations Research and the Management Sciences. And essentially you can see here in the focus on operations research analytics. And if you pay attention to those keywords, essentially we'll talk about the field of operations management, operations research, management science, and analytics. So this Informs has many societies, sections, or chapters. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of publication, and many of those publications, as a matter of fact, they are top tier journals in the field. And Informs organize many international conferences. And the international conference, as a matter of fact, typically will be held in different countries. That's why it's called international conferences. So the annual meeting, of course, that's one typically will be held in the United States. There's a lot of attendees for this annual meeting. And typically we will have like around 7,000 attendees for our annual meeting. Okay, so that's informs in general. And the specific, I like to talk the service science. So this is a new section. It's a small society vision informs. You can see here, we have journal, we have our annual conference. So the journal, you can see here, the focus, we talk about the customer experience, we talk about digital service, we cover financial services, healthcare, and the service analytics, service design, service operations. So essentially, you can see here, a service sign is a science with a people-centric focus. So focus on the people. So that's why we call it people-centric science. Okay. So this field is it's interdisciplinary area, combining OR, management science, computing, data analytics, and the social science. So this is once again interdisciplinary area, and it's emerging field. Okay. So talk about journal, we talk about top tier journal here, right? And there's some indicators, as a matter of fact, generally speaking. Once again, I had one slide earlier, I mentioned, depends on your institution. So you might have different kind of ranking of the journals, but worldwide, generally speaking, and a lot of readers, audience, they will pay attention to, for example, called a size score or the impact factors, because those numbers you can easily locate from the internet. You just search that journal by adding the keywords, impact factors. Most likely you will get the impact factors for those journals, especially like we talk about the top tier journals. So you can see the impact factor here. So the questions are, what kind of number, you would think would be, the journal would be considered a good one. And once again, it's hard to say, but to me, generally speaking, I would say above 3. And, that's the very good journal. And also depends on the field. Once again, if you think about science, those are, chemistry, or the mathematics or physics. So you might see very high, impact factors in the engineering field or in the management and business field. So you have different numbers. Okay, but generally speaking, once again, you can compare those impact factors, between those journals. Okay, so this is just for your information. Okay, so back to the, the journal we mentioned earlier. You submit your paper. If the first round, you will get the acceptance letter from the editor-in-chief. You're so lucky. So you did a very good job. Okay, so you can see here, and about 10%. And the first version for your submission will be accepted. So you can see if you get a letter or email from editor-in-chief, he or she asks you to revise the paper, that's typical. So because 90% of those submissions will belong to that category, right? So you have to pay attention to the reviews to revise your paper. Okay, so the average wait for acceptance, and you can see here, right now it's 8 to 12 months. It's almost a year, but keep that in mind. And right now, because everything is handled electronically, so actually that time it's getting shorter and shorter, which is good news. So for example, you can see here for the first response, and a lot of journals, especially informs journals, IEEE journals, for example, and we are targeting 3 months. In other words, most likely you will hear, response from the editing office within 3 months. Okay, so keep that in mind. Once again, it's getting shorter and shorter, because many years ago, and not too long ago, as a matter of fact, it was about 2 years, that was too bad. anyway, so right now, once again, it's getting shorter. So the question can see here, what kind of strategy you could have, to make sure your paper, will be published. So that's why, once again, know your paper, know yourself well, and know the journal well. So this is essentially where I can talk a little bit more. And I can use 2 examples. So very simple examples. Those examples might be slightly different from what you heard, because I know many speakers talk about operations management, and my actually is interdisciplinary area. Okay, so know yourself, once again, talk about your papers, right? So you have to know your research topic very well, what kind of research questions, what kind of methodologies has been used in your research, what kind of contributions, because earlier I mentioned, for each journal, you have to read the scope, and then you have to make sure your paper will be aligned with the scope of that journal very well. Okay, so I have 2 examples, like I said, the one's called the Energy Efficiency Project. So other one is related to healthcare. Okay. So this is a project we have been working on for many years. This is a specific project related to energy efficiency project at Penn State. And we have 2 buildings in Philadelphia area, in Pennsylvania, United States. So this is a new building here. The other one, it's called 661, that's old building. So essentially what we did, we built a new building to see what we have to do to make the energy consumption efficient. And versus if there's existing building, what kind of a renovation, what kind of a new operations we should have to match that facility to make sure the energy will be consumed less. In the meantime, meeting the users' requirement, meets their needs. Okay. So whatever that requirement will be, of course, typically we would say, the comfortable level, right? So we are in a room, we feel very comfortable. So that's the essentially, I would say, the customer's need. So this is a specific project we have been working on. You can see here, this is a old building, and we install a lot of sensors in the building. I think it's about 3,000 sensors. So we collect all the data day in, day out. We try to analyze what's going on with that building, and then we will know how we can operate that building in a different way. Of course, we talk about energy consumption issue here. Try to reduce the energy consumption. Okay, so this is a specific project related to equipment operations. So you can see here, and the existing system, and typically you think about any room, any buildings, right? So there's a bunch of equipment. You have the heaters, you have a boiler, you have air conditioning system, you have a lighting system, you have a ventilation systems. So all those equipment, they will be on at a given time. For example, 6 a.m. will be on, all of them will be on, or 9 p.m. and probably shut off some of them, not all of them. For example, in the winter, the heating system, of course, you cannot shut down, 100%, and otherwise will be frozen. All those pipers will have issues, right? But anyway, especially for a big building, so those equipment will be operated in a interdependent way. And for example, ventilation, right? So air conditioning, for example. So which one should be turned on first? And when you shut down those equipment, and you have to make sure you follow certain, a sequence. And also because air conditioning, for example, and for a big building, you might have many units. So those air conditioner will be located in different corners, for example. So you have to have a very good, the schedule to make sure, and all those equipment will be on at a given time and meeting the requirement. Okay, once again, and the traditional way, of course, operation manager does a very simple job. Like I said, just at given time turn them on, given time they turn them off. So without question, that's not the best way, right? So that's why we start this project. You can see here the constraints, of course, if the room has people, that's, for example, a conference room, right? And you should turn air conditioning on if it's too hot, right? And if there's no people, of course, you should not turn it on. That's a very simple kind of understanding, and you can save energy. So that's why we, like I say, we collect a lot of data, and we collect about 3 years data. So we try to learn that from the history, and you can see here, and build up optimization model and understand the interdependencies of those equipment. Then make a better schedule for the operations. Okay, so having this project done, of course, we can actually do better job in the future. So we learn from history, and then we can help the operations manager to match that building better in the future. So this same framework, as a matter of fact, we can run simulation, and we can simulate different kind of scenarios. Like we talk about those equipment, they are interdependent. So what kind of an interdependency and can be changed, so we can make that those equipment running more efficiently in terms of for saving energy. Okay, so that's why we say design a new building. We can use this model or tool to do better job. Okay, this is basically one paper. So of course you have choices to submit your paper. For example, the management science, and because this is related to the managerial issue, right? And you have a choice to submit to the IEEE, and which is, for example, which is system man cybernetics. This is systems I was associate editor for this journal. So of course you check the scope. It looks like it's good too, and both choices are not bad. And when you actually analyze, your paper a little bit more, for example, you can see the reference coming from the reference. If you can find any hint from the references you use. So it turns out that paper, we have so many citations from energy and the building. So you can, if we count it, here's like 4 plus 9, 13 papers cited from that specific journal, which means this research work is related to energy and building tremendous, right? So that's why we check this one. So this might be a good choice, right? Okay, like I said earlier, of course, you have to check the scope, and the scope looks like it's very good. You can see here, focus on practical and experimental research, and focus on advances in theoretical and the simulation methods. And another one, which is impact factor. So it's close to 5. It's a very good choice. So that's why we submit our research work to that journal. And of course, we heard good news, was accepted. Okay, that was one example. So the second one I'd like to share with you, which is a healthcare. So this is another project we have been working on for many years. And we took the data from different hospitals. And essentially you can see here, and the medical records will be archived. We build a model, try to understand the progression of the diseases. So then when the patients are discharged from the hospital, and we can have some guidance provided to the patients, because we build a deep learning model and we understand what kind of disease and when that disease will appear again. So of course, that's a reference model for the physician to use. And the physician, of course, many of them, they have a good experience. They might have something in mind already, and they will provide good guidance to the patients. But the system confirms that recommendation. Of course, the doctors will be happier, right? So, okay, anyway, this is another research we have been working on. We try many different kind of data sets, like I say. So specific one, so this one, we use called a Mimic3, which is a data set archived by MIT. And we finished that paper because research was based on electronic health record. And we identify a journal, which is this one. It's IEEE's journal, so Journal of Biomedics and Health Informatics. And once again, you can see here impact factors over 5. And that's why we decide this was a good choice. Of course, that paper was accepted and actually was one of the featured publication selected by that journal. Anyway, I shared these two examples, my personal experience with you. And I have a few slides talk about the general strategies. So keep that in mind, especially right now, diversify your portfolio. That's very, very important. So you have a more area you can do the researches. So I have one slide to talk about interdisciplinary fields. For example, like earlier I mentioned the service science. And keep that in mind, you have to build your professional network. So by attending many different international conferences and by listening to the other researchers' work, and you will know the state of the art. So you won't work on those dying topics, for example, right? So to be an active reviewer, that's another way to build your professional network. And in addition to that, of course, you will know the journal very well because you are doing the review for that journal. So you will know what kind of topic, research that journal likes to have, so they can publish, a quality paper. So interdisciplinary area, of course, these days we'll talk about big data, we talk about IoT technologies, we talk about data because of big data. There's so much data out there. Data-driven decision making. This is a field extremely important these days. So not just simply based on experience, because the data will tell you, like the project we did, I show you that 2 projects. And the outcome, of course, will be very good. Reference model can be created and serving as a, reference for decision maker to make informed decisions. So a lot of the data and the AI, of course, because of a lot of data. So the data analytics, artificial intelligence becomes extreme hot topics these days. So blockchain and fintech and people-centric smart service and smart city and sustainability. So all those fields, of course, we know kind of like a very hot area. Okay, so I know I don't have that much time left, but anyway, I have a few more slides talk about the general strategy in terms of getting your paper published. So keep that in mind. Write your paper in a clear way. So write clearly. That's very, very important. So state your contribution. So make sure the readers, reviewers, the editor-in-chief know your contributions. That's very, very important. Okay, you provide comparisons to the state of art, for example. And another one, of course, this is especially for someone if English is not his or her in the native language. So make sure you have the professional technical editor to help you to get a paper written clearly. So put paper together without question, interesting title, that's important. Okay, so spend a lot of time, and typically I would say half of the writing time to the introduction and conclusion. You have to emphasize the research topic, emphasize the contribution. Okay, so the reviewers will pay attention to your research in the before he or she spend too much time to review one paper. Typically, my personal experience would like a day or 2 days just to review one in long paper. That's why you have to get reviewers' attention earlier. That's why in the introduction and the conclusion is very important. And do not use I, and that's a rule of the thumb. And treat other generous. Generous. This is very important because you cite their works. It's method which is good because the credibility is there, and avoid cite your own work too much. Okay, do not be apologetic. That's not good. It looks like it's something it's not right? So that's why do not apologetic. Okay, so if you could use tables to summarize results, because that's easy for readers to read, to understand, and to simplify the figures, make them legible. So that's very, very important. Okay, so the do not plagiarism. So that's very important right now. And because many journals, they do have that software right now, which would do the similarity check. And typically less than 15%. That's just one example. And of course, follow once again the instruction provided by the journal. And general speak, we say 25 pages for the journal. Of course, you have to keep that in mind. Like you say, the guidance from the individual journal, because they might give you the how many words and for a typical publication. So not just by pages. Okay, so this is just for your information. So this is just a submission strategy. So if you finish your paper, will be better. Just leave there for a week. Read it again. So because you might find some a grammar error or typos, whatever, right? So make sure you do that if you have time. Okay. And of course, this is just something, keep that in mind, and do not submit 2 papers to the same journal, in 2 weeks, for example, or a month, with a month, right? So of course, some journal might have some preferences. Okay. So in case, you have a 2 or 3 submissions rejected by the same journal. So of course, you should not continue to submit that the same topic to the same journal. Okay. So anyway, you can see here once again, and it's okay to contact the editor. So because like I said, the guidance might provide that information. So for example, 3 months, and they will provide you a response. For example, after 3 months, if you haven't heard anything from the editing office, yeah, you are welcome to contact the office. Okay. So another thing, keep that in mind. If the submission is rejected, try it again. Okay. Do not think about the comments or reviews from the referee. It's stupid. Okay. So you have to think about maybe you didn't write that well, so it was not clear. So that could be the reasons, not because the reviewer, they don't understand your research well. Okay, so that's why I did not get angry. Okay, so be respectful. That's very, very important, and especially think about this way. All the editor-in-chiefs, associate editors, reviewers, they are volunteers. They spend time to help the community, to help the world. So, they once again, most of them, I would say, they won't get a pay for any the work they did, okay, they're doing. But anyway, so keep that in mind. So to be respectful, okay, that's very, very important. Okay, anyway, I think, to get people published, you have to be optimistic, okay, get excited. So, when you have the revision comment from our editing office, so keep that in mind and write detailed response to all those comments, okay? And of course, do not attack referees, right? So resubmit your paper within 3 months. And of course, once again, follow the guideline, and it depends on the instruction provided by the given journal. So of course, so we always like good news, right? So if you get acceptance letter from the editor, of course, you finish your final revision, you sign a copyright form and transfer your copyright to the publisher. Of course, you can do the final proofreading. So quality paper, any quality paper I would say from you is published by the journal. It's a win-win, keep that in mind. So it's not war, like I said earlier, it's a win-win situation because the journal has a good paper published. Of course, that's good to the journal, to the publisher. So we as author, we're happy. We get our outstanding research done well. In the meantime, we get a paper published, right? So we're happy. So publication, once again, you must enjoy it, okay? You have to think about to play it again, which is a win-win game. Okay, that's why this is my talk. Know yourself, know your publisher, and you will get your paper published. this should be part of your life. Enjoy it. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful session on the topic, which was quite interesting. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. To know yourself and know your publisher, and you will get your paper published. So we have gathered a lot of insights from this session, especially publishing the paper in top-rated journals with specific examples such as energy efficiency and health system, and also general strategies around the publishing paper. So it's now question and answer session. So we have received overwhelming response to this event from the research fraternity, and there are a few questions here. So the first one is how to promote research in service science area. Is this being the need of the day, with majority of the world economies are in transitioning to service economy, and more jobs are likely to be created in service sector?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Yeah, I agree with you. Right now, the economy is driven by service as a matter of fact. So even within the products, any products, right, and in the quality products made by manufacturers. So at the end of the day, those products will be used by consumers. So within the car, for example, without question, we need a very good quality car, and the driving experience, after or the after sales service, maintenance service. That's a very, very important part of the products. So when we think about physical products, car itself. So that's why, especially building the reputation, for that given brand, and the service is important. And that's why the consumer will continue to buy that brand car, for example, right? After they have a good experience. So the question right now, of course, how, to get this kind of research, done and published. I would say because, digitalization these days, the computer technology allows us to get more data. So it's different from 20 years or 30 years ago. So, getting survey out, collecting data from consumers will take too much time. And even worse, I would say, because behind, always kind of like after the fact, right? They're too late. For example, service is top of last year's service, and to the service provider, they would like to see what's going on right now and what we could do in the future. So given the advances of the computing technology, especially mobile, computing technology, mobile phone, smartphone these days, and allows us to collect a lot of data, allows us to analyze the perceptions, for example, for the consumers. So that's why the service science right now, I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's emerging field in Century try to focus on this by taking advantage, or I would say by leverage those advances in the technology, so we can understand better in terms of consumer behaviors, in terms of their satisfaction, in terms of the or maybe the issues coming from consumers, right? So we could analyze them, and then I would say by analyze those dynamics. So we think about their behaviors, their perceptions, or maybe there's a trend in a given region, for example. So because we cannot apply the same kind of a result analyzed from one region to the other regions, because the culture differences could be, if I use a car as an example, and it could be the different models in different regions. And it could be sometimes could be just the temperature, even in the United States, the northern part of the United States was the southern part of the United States, because the driving conditions are different, right? So what I'm trying to say is doing this kind of research, it's interesting, and because we will be able to get in data these days, and we'll be able to help manufacturer to do better job to serve their customers. So this kind of research, I think in the long run, will be very useful, beneficial to the manufacturers and also to the consumers. So anyway, somehow, if we will be able to leverage the advances of technology and focus on, like I mentioned kind of earlier, we call that people-centric study. And the people, it's the core. So we have to focus on people, what kind of perceptions and what kind of behaviors, consuming behavior, like I say. So we understand that very well, and then we can do better job. So I think that's the research we should focus on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that answer. And another question we have is, what would be your advice to budding researchers? Which research areas are promising? Is it interdisciplinary, operations, or information science?
Thank you. That's another interesting question. I think it's quite related to the first one. I would say interdisciplinary area. To me, I think it's more interesting these days. So we're not going to say, we focus on operations research. That's no good. I think that's fine. Each field has, many things we have to continue to work on. But work on interdisciplinary area, maybe just a little bit more exciting, especially to myself, and that you can build a very good collaborations, for example, because it's not just your domain. So each of us has our domain, and we are not good at something, so we can build that collaboration with other ones, and we can work together. And especially we learned this lesson in this pandemic, and stay at home actually is no fun, right? So because we are human beings, we like a social life. Yes. So that's why I would think and build to build that collaboration with the other different researchers and focus on the interdisciplinary area. And you might be able to get more publications out. And once again, I'm not going to say simply focus on classic research. Focus on, for example, just pure optimization theory. And we do need that study without question, because there's a lot of issues unsolved. And there's new issues we have to address. But like I said, once again, especially from business management perspective, I would say. Getting something in real and work on real problems and building that collaboration, I think is more fun. So you can enjoy that longer. Just my personal experience.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that wonderful answer. Third question is on which solution methodology to adopt for greater acceptability of the research paper. Should it be AI, ML, big data kind of analytics, or traditional models like OR or MCDA could help in that?
Yeah, this is a more related to methodology question. Yeah, thank you for that. I would say both. I don't think which one, maybe I say different. I think it's just personal preference. So rather than say which one's more important, of course, we heard so much about the AI in the data analytics, machine learning these days, without question, right? In terms of publication, for example, maybe I say this way. In terms of publication, of course, the machine learning AI, the new methodologies, it might be a little, I should not easier, but it could be the preference of those journals. So no doubt about that, because in any journal you can see that, even like I mentioned, kind of management science, operations research, they had the traditional department, but right now they're adding all those analytics departments. So expand their territory to the new fields, which means they would like to see more studies, coming from those emerging fields. So that be in terms of publication, in terms of publication. So I would say that AI, once again, data analytics, big data, or those emerging fields, I would say will be better. But once again, kind of similar to the last question too. So the optimization, once again, operations research, like you mentioned, the NCDA, they are important. They are very important. They are foundations. So without those theoretical development, of course, we cannot go further. So we still need a lot of research in these fields.
Thank you for that excellent answer. Another question is on, especially with the service science journal. So what kind of, research is accepted? Will it be qualitative, quantitative, or model driven, or any applied research, or any other research is preferred over there?
Yeah, thank you for that question, related to service science. So service science, I kind of mentioned earlier, which is an interdisciplinary area. So these days, I would say, all different kind of methodologies, they are fine. So it doesn't matter if it's qualitative or quantitative, or the data-driven, modeling. They are all applicable for service science publication. So the only things I would say is, because each journal has its focus, like I said, the scope. So the people-centric, that's a key. So any study, you have to have a component which is related to service, which is related to how the research will help the consumers in terms of meeting the requirements, and in terms of improve their perceptions, or simply just get a better understanding the needs from the consumers. So that's a key. And another area I would say service science focuses on, we call it co-production, or sometimes they call it co-creation. And you have the service providers, you have the service consumers. So the value will be co-created by service providers and service consumers. So it's not like a manufacturing in the old time. Once the product's made, right? So you deliver to the sales department, whatever. So kind of like you create a value already, and they didn't consider. Essentially, maybe I said different. Focus on functionality. What functions will be provided by the physical products, right? But service is different until the consumers actually they are using your products, then value will be created. So that's why co-creation of value, that's another big perspective, I would say major perspective for service science.
Okay. So thank you, sir. And one more question is there. Which data-driven information system model to promote effective policy responses to curtailing COVID-19 pandemic for the countries like India?
Thank you for that question. I have been working on this kind of a study last year, since the outbreak in the United States. I think it's around March, because the data, we collect a lot of data from all different data sources. So we try to understand the policies, each state, for example, in the United States, because policy response from each state are different, and the outcome will be different. So we saw that. And also, because in the United States, there was no federal level policy as a matter of fact. So that's why we'll be able to analyze, state by state. We did that comparisons. Anyway, so understanding the consequences of the different policy responses from the states, without question, will help the decision maker in the long run. In other words, they know the history, so they should learn the lesson from the history, right? So they will be able to do better job in the future. But of course, this pandemic hopefully will be over soon, and they might not going to do the same thing. But the model, once again, the approach, so the data-driven approach, and because we never know, maybe there's a different kind of virus, in the future will be out there. Hopefully, no, we don't want that, but unfortunately, that's a possibility. So idea is to build this kind of a data-driven model and build develop working methodology I would think that's will be very helpful. So we actually try to build a simulation model based on the model we build, and then we can provide a simulation model to the decision maker down the road, and they can at least they can see the different scenarios and to see the policy, which policy will be better in terms of containing the virus. And of course, it's a very complicated process. I would say, it's not just fighting the virus itself, because other different issues we have to consider. For example, the social issues, economic issues, right? We cannot just shut down the country, and then we have other different issues. Other issues might be even worse. So that's why to balance that will be very challenging. So I think the same approach can be applied to different regions. You specifically mentioned India. So I would think because each India's state or the province, I know each country is different, but anyway, you think about the different regions, right? Yes. So the policies once again, depends on the enforcement. For example, you have a policy. The question is how those policies actually get enforced. That's another issue. So I would think this kind of study can be extended, by including many other different considerations. Like I say, the social issues, economic issues, or law enforcement issues, right? And also, the international travel, for example, that's another big one. It's a matter of fact, it's not just between this, different regions. So all those, considerations must be, considered, and then the model will be more effective. And I would say, just my personal experience, I would say, data-driven. If it's possible, that getting real-time data will be better. Because once again, like I said, the example I used earlier, the 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we use a survey a lot. And the survey, you tell the history. It's not going to help them much in the future, right? Especially this is in a pandemic, we know that it happened in the emergence so fast, as a matter of fact, right? So that's why if we'll be able to get real-time data, so in other words, down the road, so regardless of the methodology or the model we will build, getting real data, real-time data, real-time data, and that's key, because you know the reality rather than the history. The history, of course, can help us a little bit, but the reality helps us a lot, because we can make a right decision in the right time, and then we can fight the pandemic in a more effective way.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that wonderful answer. And one more question is there on chat by Dr. Arun Kumar. Dr. Arun Kumar, would you like to ask?
No, sir, I have so many questions. So, sir, this is a broad topic, I think so. Sir, please give some idea on application of anomaly detection techniques in healthcare analytics. Is it possible, sir?
Yeah, I say again, sorry.
Please give some idea on application of anomaly detection or outlier in data. Anomaly. Sir, it is in chat box also, sir.
It is in chat box, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because I heard you talk about the health care analytics. Yeah, this is a very interesting area. Thank you so much for that question.
This is a broad topic, I think so.
Yeah. We are working with one company right now, especially think about the insurance, right? So insurance company, they like to see this kind of outcome. So you raise a very, very good question. And especially in the United States, the healthcare, I think if I recall correctly, almost like 20% of GDP is related to healthcare.
Yes.
So the data, we have a lot of data. So understanding the patients, that's one part. Another part, which is anomaly information, especially related to insurance, like that's why I said this is a very interesting question. And amazingly, like I said, actually we're working with a company right now, and we try to understand the frauds.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Fraud
The
detection.
frauds
Yes,
coming from insurance, that's anomaly, right?
yes.
So anomaly detection and how we can uncover that, from large data set, and we will be able to help, insurance company to fight that. So this is a very interesting. I know it's a hot topic, and also, I would say the challenging issue with this is the data set itself.
Okay.
In other words, unless you can get the data set from one big insurance company, for example, right? So because we need a larger data set, so we can build a model, we can uncover the patterns. So it's special for anomaly, because anomaly essentially, which is kind of like outliers, right? So outliers, you cannot make any judgment based on only one or two. So that's why, because outlier typically they're small percentage. So you can see here, so the data set, it's a key. So, we try to work on that kind of project for many years as a matter of fact. And unfortunately, we didn't get that large data set. We uncover like, few patterns from one data set, but we cannot conclude anything. So recently, we had a good opportunity, and we are working with the one company. We try to get the large data set, still ongoing. So I cannot say we will get that project. But interesting enough, this is another opportunity we're working on.
So, sir, in case of panel data means cross-sectional and time series data.
Right.
So it will be more difficult, I think so.
Yeah, I agree with you. But the longitudinal data, actually, in the general speaking, I think for the,
I will be in touch with you, sir. I have a lot of questions relating to this.
Sure.
Because I think Manako sir is waiting.
Right.
People are also. So I'll be in touch with you, sir. So I have a lot of doubts in this particular area, especially multivariate data analytics, as well as outlier detection. Anomalies in multivariate data analysis. When there are anomalies in the data, our predictions are almost go wrong. So in my PhD thesis, I did some panel data analysis. Then I found so many issues. There I came to know the importance of anomaly detection. I will be in touch with you, sir. So
sounds good. Sure. Yeah.
So Manitha sir, please.
Yes. Sir, there is one request from one of our participant that can we have a presentation soft copy for future reference?
Sure. Yeah, I can send that to you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So with this, we come to an end of this event. So as we come to the end of this 10th webisode, I request Dr. Arun Kumar to propose a vote of thanks for this webisode.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Manka, sir. Okay. So on behalf of SIOM, I take this opportunity to thank all those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webisode 10 of Editor's Choice organized by our institute. At the outset, I thank our speaker, Professor Robin. Sir, we are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence, and we are thankful to our director, Professor Vandana Swanwane, for her motivation and continuous support to make this webisode come into reality. Special thanks to the research committee, faculty, and staff for their unflinching support and coordination. Our heartfelt thanks to all participants who are connected virtually with us. Before ending today's episode, I would like to announce the speaker for next episode, that is episode 11. It is Professor Justin Paul. Professor Justin Paul is Editor-in-Chief of International Journal of Consumer Studies, as well as Associate Editor of Journal of Business Research. With this, we move to end of today's episode. Thank you. So thank you, sir. I will be in touch with you. Sure. So thank you for accepting our invitation and spend this much time, sir. Really
thank you so much. Thank you all for your invitation.
It was Robin, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Robin. We'll stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.